Ted and I have been married for almost 5 years, and it took me 5 good years to realize that he can't read my mind.
Kind of a slow learner here.
Yeah. 5 years to realize that he can't read my mind. He doesn't know what I'm thinking. He doesn't know what I'm feeling if I do not communicate.
Well, I need to stop you in your tracks right now. I can't read this lady's mind. The other night, she got into bed and I knew that she needed a back massage.
Yes.
And I said, "Do you want your back massage?" And she said, "Oh, that would be wonderful." That was exactly how she said it too. So I can't read your mind? I'm not really so sure if that's true. Maybe I can't always read your mind, and there shouldn't be an expectation that you know, but sometimes maybe, right? Let's give me some credit.
So I'll give you the credit. Sometimes you get cues based on how I'm feeling and stuff like that.
And I knew she wanted to marry me before she knew.
But no.
So obviously I can read her mind.
Oh, sometimes, but a lot of times too, you know, I expect him to know what I'm thinking. The reason for this video actually is because, you know, we got a comment from someone. It's like, Vero, how do you get her to, you know, to be on the same vibration as you and stuff like that? You know, for the longest time when we got married, that there were moments where I'll be sitting there and I'll be quiet and thinking that he knew exactly what I was thinking. He knew exactly how I was feeling, but that wasn't the case. I was expecting him, because we were married and because we said our I do's, I was expecting him in a weird way to be the same person I was. I don't know why that happened, but for the longest time, I'm like, okay, if I am hungry, if I'm tired, he should know I'm tired. If I want to go to this restaurant, he should know I want to go to this restaurant. Without communicating to him, I was expecting him to know these things, but that wasn't the case. Like I said earlier, it took me 5 good years to finally realize, oh my gosh, he can't really read my mind. Like, he doesn't know what I'm thinking. Sometimes he'll get cues based on conversations that we are having, but I need to tell him if I'm feeling tired, if I want to go here, if I want to do this. I actually need to open up my mouth and communicate with him. I've realized a lot of relationships end because people are not communicating. We are expecting these men to know how we are feeling. We are expecting these men to know exactly what we are thinking without actually opening up our mouth. And so relationships are ending because, you know, we end up saying, oh, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about what I want. He doesn't care about my feelings and stuff like that. So many relationships are ending because people are not communicating. If I need something, I got to tell him. If I want something, I got to tell him. If I am feeling a certain way, I need to tell him so that he can actually be on the same vibration as me.
Well, it does get a little bit easier to read your mind as the years go by.
Yeah.
So when we got married in such short order.
Yeah.
It was like 4 months or something like that. And we actually, in some ways, were strangers.
Yes.
We were strangers and we had to get to know each other after we were married. So it was like, honestly, I mean, my wife and I rode the Amtrak back here to Oregon, where I live, from Maryland, where she was at the time. And her moving in was kind of an interesting experience for both of us. I think we both felt slightly awkward when she was moving in. She was walking into this house for the first time.
Yeah.
And there was just sort of this strange kind of tension in the air.
Yeah.
And it was because we didn't really know each other. It was like, okay, we're here. Now what are we supposed to do?
Now what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, you know. So anyway, it does get easier. But at the same time, as you grow and change, as you should be, it also isn't always going to be like, oh, I've got this one figured out now. This person is changing. So you're not always going to know. But just an interesting side note, we're so busy these days that we stopped the guessing game when it comes to gift giving.
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
Read my mind and give me the present that I want for my birthday and for Christmas. And make me, you know, if you don't get it perfectly right, you know, I'm going to be sad and I'm going to pout. You know, none of that silliness. We were never really like that, but we did kind of do the whole I want you to figure it out thing. And then we were like, you know what? If I just tell you what I want, then I know that I'm going to like what you get me. And people will say, well, that takes the fun out of it. It doesn't mean you can't surprise each other with, say, you know, a gift here and there. It doesn't have to be a birthday or a Christmas thing, because you can cause problems that don't need to be there when you expect that your spouse is supposed to be able to read your
figure
mind.
things out.
Yeah, I mean, Veronica has never read my mind, not even once. She's never gotten it right. I've always had to tell her how to do it.
Oh, Dad. I've been able to read your mind here and there.
Oh yeah, I'm just kidding.
think that being able to figure things out is when you read the mood, because sometimes you have to read the mood of the person to see exactly what they need, you know. And that's what I do with you most of the time. Like, I'll read your mood, and because we've been together for 5 years, like 5 years is not a joke, it's a long time. And so I know who you are much more now. You know, we are gradually changing and we are still getting to know each other as time goes on. But I know who you are so much now that whenever you are quiet, or you are in your office, or based on the vibe going on.
Or I'm looking annoyed.
Yes, I know that, okay, you are hungry.
Right.
I know that you are hungry.
Read my mind. Ted's annoyed.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
He's hungry.
I know that you are hungry, and I know that this is going on. But it is so important, ladies, for us to get this right. And I feel like the issue comes a lot with us women. Men don't necessarily care so much if you can read their minds or not. A few men here and there will care. But
depending on what it is they expect her to know.
Yes, exactly. But when it comes to us women, especially when it comes to romantic stuff, a lot of women will say, oh, he's not romantic. He doesn't know that he needs to get me flowers. Maybe his dad never brought flowers for his mom. So he doesn't know that he needs to bring you flowers. You know, it takes a while to get to know somebody.
Right.
And so once he knows that, okay, you like flowers, he will start bringing you flowers. I told Ted one time, I was like, I love flowers, but in this season of my life, I like sushi more. That's what he gets for me. Yeah, that's why I told him. I had to communicate. If I didn't tell him that, okay, I like sushi more, he will keep bringing me flowers all the time.
All the while she's thinking, I'm kind of over flowers, you know? I'd rather have raw fish.
Oh,
yeah. Well,
that was funny.
It's just kind of like unfair expectations, right?
Yes.
And putting undue pressure on your relationship, and you're doing fine.
Yeah.
Really, you're doing fine, but you're getting all in your feelings, and you're kind of like expecting things that are somewhat unrealistic, you know? And don't get me wrong, there are times when men drop the ball and they should have known because maybe it had been discussed before, or maybe you've been giving some very clear cues and indications about how you feel about something and he's just not getting it. I understand. I mean, there are some cases where it's like, darn, I'm getting frustrated because he doesn't seem to get it. He's not paying attention to me, right? But just saying stuff flat out in a loving and caring way will do wonders, because the guy isn't necessarily daft and not paying attention. He's getting cues too. So think about the cues that you're giving him, and why is he not reading your mind, right? Because if he has been romantic in the past, maybe, just for instance, maybe the way that you received it didn't reinforce that you really cared about it. Maybe you cared about it inside your heart and your feelings. You thought, oh, how romantic. And maybe you called up your girlfriends but did you really praise him? Did you bring it up maybe a couple days later and say, honey, what you did for me, thank you so, did you make it special for him so that he knew she really did appreciate that?
And also, you know who you got into the relationship with. If he's someone that is not financially there yet, and there is something that you really, really want, and you've been giving him cues, and yet he hasn't done it, you can't really be upset. Maybe he can't afford that thing right now. And the time will come where when he's able to afford those things, he will do it. But you need to communicate with him.
Yeah, well, imagine, right? You work for a boss, and many of you do. Imagine your boss standing there in the office with the door open, looking out, with his arms crossed and getting all irritated. Because you and the rest of the people that he's hired aren't doing what he wants you to do. But here's the catch. He never told you what he wanted you to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Would you run a company like that? Would you manage a company like that? Your boss is going to tell you, if he's a good boss, if he wants a successful business running, he's going to tell you exactly what he expects of you and exactly how to do it, and so on and so forth. So it really isn't that much different when it comes to a marriage. A marriage is something that you work at, right? You work at a job, and it's the same idea. If you're not clear about things, if you're not communicating what you want, what you expect in the relationship, and on it goes. I mean, this just is an umbrella all the way down through finances and expectations in the bedroom and how we're raising our children. If you don't talk about these things, all of a sudden, dad's going to do something, raising little baby Proverbs, and mom's going to say, you can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
But we didn't talk about it. So maybe that was a parenting technique that he got from a book or his parents. And maybe in his mind, that was a good move. But see, you don't agree, but you didn't talk about it. So you can't expect to know. We're so different. We're so varied. So just keep those lines of communication open and make it fun and just relax.
I looked over there because I thought something was coming.
Oh, well, my wife is always paranoid about the wildlife coming out. We've got, mountains behind us. You can't really see because of the sun over there, but she always expects the mountain lions are going to pounce on her from up in these trees.
Where you live by like a little forest. We live like by a forest right behind us. I'm like, always looking up like, oh, sorry, I thought something was coming to pass.
See? And I don't need to read her mind to know that, because she's told me on plenty of occasions
I'm talking about
that I'm terrified of the big grizzly bear, and I'm terrified of the little Chihuahua dog, and I'm terrified of the ducks, and I'm terrified of every living creature that God made on this planet.
Are you guys scared of animals? Like...
She's scared of animals. Anyway.
No, I think the only animal I'm not scared of, into bracket here, is a rabbit. Yeah, anyway, let's go back to the topic.
I'm not so sure about that.
Communicate. Don't assume that he knows what you are thinking. Tell him exactly what you are thinking and how you are feeling, so that you don't go laying in bed, whispering to yourself and saying things to yourself that is against your partner. Because the enemy prowls himself in those type of things. He feeds on those type of things, and if you are not careful, he enters your heart and your heart starts turning the other way.
Don't take your partner for granted. 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, maybe 20 years goes by. You start to take your partner for granted. Your spouse for granted. It's very easy to do.
It is.
You just get so familiar and so comfortable that we do tend to drop the ball. Husband and wife, both. It can happen. You do. So stay curious about your spouse and find ways to keep things fresh and communicating really and being honest. Don't be afraid of what you want to say. Holding back, that's going to cause the problems.